Howdy. Also, another very popular newish distro on the scene that's been around for about, I think, just over 2 years is Garuda Linux. And Garuda Linux is essentially it's an Arch-based distro that is heavily themed as well as has pre-customizations added to it. It has, from a GUI standpoint, it's got um, pardon me, it has console, it has fish, it has fully themed, allows you to change the themes slightly. Um, it uses Btrfs as a default file system with compression, as well as it also enables automatic snapshots out of the box. So especially if you're using a Arch-based type distro, inadvertently at some point in time you're probably going to have a bad update, and you can quickly go back from it. And of course, remember, snapshots are not backups, so you need separate backups in place. And they have their own assistant tools for common tasks. They use the chaotic AUR, which of course is pre-compiled binaries. So in the case of if you don't want to compile AUR packages on your machine, or if your machine's a little slow, you can use a chaotic AUR. Now, of course, there's a risk here because it's already been pre-compiled, so somebody else could actually insert some malware in the package builds and you wouldn't be aware of it. So just something to be cognizant of. Also, the chaotic AUR isn't recommended either. They have their own spin of LibreWolf, which of course LibreWolf is a browser based on Firefox. In their case, they use FireDragon, which is essentially LibreWolf with a couple of privacy add-ons, better KDE integration, and using a different search engine. I think it uses Sirix, which they, as in Garuda, hosts themselves. They have their own GUI for managing drivers, settings manager, as very similar to the tool that I know Manjaro uses. Different GUI for gaming, and so much on this list. It's just can be quite overwhelming. When it comes to versions available, well, they have the Garuda KDE Dragonized edition, which is the flagship, as well as the Dragonized Gaming Edition as well. Pretty much the same thing, just with additional tooling available for gaming. They have GNOME, Cinnamon, XFCE, May Tomate, LXQT with Kwin, Wayfire, Sway, i3WM, Qtile, and they also have a Linux KDE Lite, which is essentially still Garuda and Arch underneath with some tooling, but no additional software, no additional theming, pretty much as close to vanilla KDE install as possible, as well as for those real living on the edge, they also have a KDE Git version, which is literally the latest and greatest software from KDE as well. So, looking at all of this, um, I do also want to show quickly before moving on to the whole download section is their wiki. So, what I found with the Garuda Linux wiki, pretty nicely laid out. Um, Great options. They've broken that down before installation, mid installation, first steps, customizations, cheat sheets, definitely for the other window managers, gaming, system maintenance, how to contribute, um, and of course, all of that information shown here in the middle. So they do, of course, call out this is addition to the Arch wiki. So anything that's missing here will probably be an Arch. Um, the Garuda community does call out that please don't go to the Arch forums and ask for help. Rather, do that on the Garuda community. Of course, it's really recommended to first make sure you've actually gone through the FAQs, you've done your searching, etc. So, enough about that, and let's actually go and launch a Garuda instance. So local install. First, I've decided to actually do the Dragonized Gaming Edition, just for the simple fact that it is one of the flagships, if not the main flagship. So, okay, this uses quite a bit of memory, so let's give it 4 gigs. Actually, this I'm going to give it 4 cores as well. Let's give it 50 gigs of storage, and let's just call it Garuda Gaming and finish it up. And again, I still keep making the same mistake with namings. I really need to remember. What on earth? Oh, there was a space there. Really need to remember not to have any spaces between the names. Anyway, moving on. So here, gives you the option boot with open source drivers. If you're using NVIDIA, you can boot using the proprietary NVIDIA drivers. I'm just going to do open source since this is a virtual machine. I'm going to let it boot up quite quickly. Something that is actually pretty interesting these days. A lot of the Arch-based distros, Garuda and Zero and Storm, have all really been trying to take Arch and really make it as user-friendly as possible. And it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it is nice to see communities without needing corporate backing of really making some of the really nicest and easier to use desktops that are user friendly. No matter whether they're using XFCE or GNOME or GNOME or KDE, it's really great to see that how, as a community, things can really come along very nicely. Um, Now it looks like, okay, we're moving forward here. So first things first, you see this welcome screen, which has all of the tools that allows a person to get started very quickly. Okay, I see it's busy configuring wine. I didn't expect that immediately. You can see it is heavily themed, using a spin of the suite theme. Just going to minimize this here. Okay. And of course, just clicking on the open menu. Of course, it's a little slow. It is in a virtual machine. So I'm not too sure what Wine is busy doing right now. I'll just minimize that and let's install it. Okay, like most of these distros these days, Calamari's installer. Next, correct regions. Again, by default, it gives you can choose swap or no swap. Default, it doesn't actually give you the option of what file system you want. If you want to choose a different file system apart from Btrfs, you're going to have to do that manually. So I'm just going to choose erase disk. What's the name? And then let's just call this Garuda Gaming. Put in a strong password. We'll use the same password for the root account. And here it will start installing. Yes, please. It also has a toggle log option as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this video and come back once it's finished installing. And we're back. So the Garuda installation took roughly about 8 minutes. So let's do a quick reboot and see how long it takes for the system to come back up. Definitely when looking online, you'll see there's definitely been a lot of reviews and discussions around Garuda. The distro has at times been accused of being a bit bloated. But again, having said that, they do provide a stripped down version, light edition with KDE if you prefer. However, if you do ask for support on the forum for that, you will not get any support. As it states on the website, specifically for the light edition, you are on your own. So here we are on the desktop. Okay, mine again. Let's minimize that. Do we want to use the setup assistant to finish our install? So let's say yes. Do we want to update? Yes. Okay, let's just type in our password. And you can see here it is automatically pulling down some updates. Also refreshing mirrors list and rate mirrors. This can take a bit of time. As you can see, it has core, extra, community, multi-lib, and chaotic AUR. So if you use Garuda and you were to disable chaotic AUR, you might not get all of the updates around the customization because Garuda stores a lot of their theming as well as their updates to the actual tooling that they've created in the chaotic AUR repository. So it's a little bit of a bummer that, unfortunately. Let's just fix the display. So long resolution. Again, I could choose Xrandr, but I like to use the tooling because a user this is exactly what a user would use. Most likely is the normal display. Okay, so let's fix this to the correct resolution. Apply and close here. Okay, perfect. I just want to see how far this is. Okay, that's still busy refreshing its mirrors list. It is our first time, so I guess we'll be patient. So immediately, of course, first impressions, as you can see here, uh, a lot of the interface, of course, reminiscent of macOS. It's a simple fact we have the toolbar at the bottom, we have the universal menu at the top. So, of course, if I open up something like Dolphin, you'll see here right at the top has the global menu. Normal launcher, the normal KDE launcher, which you can always change and customize yourself. I'm just going to minimize that. Wow, okay. Quite a number of updates it has here for us. So let's download these updates and hope it doesn't take too long. I did download the ISO about 2 or 3 days ago, so quite a number of more updates here than I expected there would be. In the meantime, while that does its thing, we can look at some of the other tooling. So first, of course, access to system monitor, which is part of KDE. You can see it's used 1.6 gigs. Bearing in mind it is busy updating and doing it in the background. CPU usage 40, 16, 50%. Interestingly, KDE partition manager is used here. I say interestingly, I was surprised it wasn't one of the utilities more like gparted. Then again, this distro does use quite a number of Qt tools, system settings. Pretty normal system settings here. Can even go about the system. Okay, so this still has 17.4. And something I must call out as well is by default, Garuda Linux uses the Zen kernel, which is optimized for gaming and uses a bit more power than the normal mainline kernel, which you can change, and I'll show you how. Um, you can change the theming with Garuda, but it has been reported online, and I've had also from past experience myself. Sometimes you might get random errors. So if you're going to rather change how it looks, I would really suggest using Light first. Snapper tools. Let's take a look here. Okay, so essentially what happens here is that every time you apply an update or you run Pacman, it actually automatically creates a snapshot in the background And what you can do is, if your system is unstable, you can always come and restore to a previous snapshot, or do it from the grub bootloader. By default, it uses Octopi. For if you want to install additional software, I just want to check the options and see if it's enabled AUR automatically. Okay, so by default, it actually uses Pyro, and that is automatically enabled. So let's just exit that. How far are we here? Okay, it's actually going pretty quickly. So some of the tooling, and this is really where this distro actually really shines. So I just want to first find the Garuda. So I want to show you this. Garuda Gamer. Let's first start with Garuda Gamer. So if you download and you don't download the gaming edition, you can still install the Garuda Gamer add-on or the software. You would just find it in the chaotic AUR, and you can install it on any of the Garuda installs. So by default, the specific version comes with all these launches you can see here: Lutris, Itch, Heroic, Steam, Runtime and Native, Wine, Proton Tricks, G Custom, and you can add or remove as you want here. You can even enable additional software as well. As you see here under Tools, it's actually got VLC, it has Mumble, Core Control, additional overlays, controllers. From a game standpoint, it has pre-installed a couple of open source games that's available in the repo, which you can add or remove, and a lot of these are the standard KDE ones. Emulators really nice. If you are an emulator fan and you have your ROMs, you can come straight here, just select which emulator you want, and it will install it. Just to call out, it does not include the binary or ROM or BIOS files. All of those you would need to supply yourself. That's most likely for legal reasons. Okay, that's almost done. And then back to let's do the settings manager. Okay, so in the Garuda settings manager, you have hardware configuration. And under the hardware configuration, if you're running proprietary hardware such as NVIDIA drivers, you can actually come here and automatically choose which drivers you want to use, open source or proprietary. Kernel, kernel tool. So if you go and install another kernel, let's say you want to install an LTS kernel, so you have something to fall back on, it will show in this list and you can remove it. You can't add a kernel here though. You have to actually manually go and add the kernel from Pacman. But you can see the status in which kernel you're running here. If you need language packs all installed, you can install additional language packs, use accounts, time, date, locale settings. That's all pretty simple. Okay, this is now busy installing all its various updates. While we wait for that, let's see what else we have here. So, of course, there's a lot of gaming-centric stuff, really, here out of the box. And I think it's for that reason, including Virtual Machine Manager. It's quite interesting that's pre-installed. I think this is often why this distro sometimes gets called bloated. Again, if you don't like it, you can just remove these options as well. There's also the system maintenance settings, where it's busy installing its updates, so it's probably that menu is probably freaking out a bit, which is understandable. Settings manager. just opened up the settings manager. My mistake. I was actually looking for the Garuda Assistant. This one. Okay, so let's give it. So this is a really nice tool. So it gives you the option to do system updates. Um, when you update Garuda, it's recommended not to do pacman-syu as one would on a normal Arch-based distro. In this, it's recommended to either come to the GUI, do system update, or from a terminal, just say update. Uh, it has to do with the way the distro is being configured and all the additional repos and software that needs to be pulled down. If you have any issues, with um, Alacrity, Fish, Bash, Latte, you can come here to reset your configurations of these options, which is actually really nice. Just remember it will overwrite your customizations. The snapper tool that I showed you earlier is still in Assistant, so this would just launch BTRF Assistant. System components. I really wish more distros would have an option so nicely laid out as this. So here, by default, it uses Pipewire. If you want, you could just come and change it to ULSA or Pulse Audio. If you need printing support, you can just enable it. Firewalls, if you prefer Firewall D instead of UFW, you can come here to this tool, select, unselect, apply. It will automatically rechange the settings. Settings wise though, so by default you can change from between bash, fish, sh, z, sh. If you want a DNS service, you can come here and select whichever DNS service you want. That will change your local DNS from your ISP provided settings to a custom DNS service. Power save tweaks, right click emulations, thermal, throttling into undervolts, guest user support, all of those options you can come here. Additional system specifications, diagnostics. So essentially, if you have a diagnostic issue or you have an issue, the idea is that you come to the screen, run whichever one of these tools is relevant, copy for the forum, and if you hit open forum, it will actually open up a link to the forum. As you can see by default, Fire Dragon or slash LibreWolf slash Firefox has Dark View automatic or Dark Reader automatically installed, as it has uBlock Origin and Plasma integration and XDMI. And I've said in a previous video for a different distro, I'm never too sure how I feel about having a browser that's already gotten add-ons added onto it. I always think it's something that you should be asked instead of it just being added there. Anyway, so let's apply these updates. So press enter to continue. So let's press enter. So now it has the setup assistant. So do we want to start the wizard? I'm going to say yes. We should actually be rebooting first. Do we need printer scanner summer support? No. Do we want to install additional Garuda wallpapers? No. Do we want to install additional KD components applications? No. Do we need pen testing software? Black Arch Reprint? No. Glad that option's there. Okay, so what additional inputs do we need? So if you use any of these additional fonts or languages, you can select those. I'm just going to say okay. What extra software do you want? Or should I say extra software centers? So for this, I'm just going to choose Panac just to see that it installs. Do we want another kernel? So let's say we want the LTS kernel. Which office suite we want? We could choose one of the LibreOffices. and it's also should be called out. They at Garuda have their own Garuda cloud, so there was a time where they would host their own cloud, pardon me, Nextcloud instance, as well as Bitwarden and a couple of those. I'm not sure if it's still ongoing, but I believe it's there. I'm just going to select Joplin here. Should be quick. What extra browsers do we want? Great variety here. I'm just going to choose normal Firefox, the original. Mail clients, I'm not going to install any here. What communication software do we want? I don't know, let's just do near chat. Common internet software, so anything to download, I'm just going to skip that. Post installation wizard, let's just choose Strawberry Media Player. What video software do we need? KDN Live, Shortcut, OpenShot, VLC, which I'm sure is already installed. What graphics software? Okay. Whole list. Multimedia software. Whole list. Development software do you need? Everything here from Vim. I'm going to install Vim. I'm generally a Vim user. Let's also install Emacs. What virtualization software do you want? Of course, these are some of them are already installed, so it's just installing the same thing twice. Any additional software? Variety, wallpaper changes, Conky, system monitor? No. Okay, so I just type in my password again, and let's see what this does. Okay, there's additional updates and software packages, so let's add them quickly. I would have preferred the system giving us the option to first reboot before moving on to this tool. I just like to, after applying so many updates, do a reboot first and then move on. But again, for this video, it's fine. And it's great to just see what this is like out the box for a user. I will say, at times it almost feels like Garuda is Manjaro without being Manjaro. So where Manjaro holds back repos or software for up to 2 weeks, and it can sometimes cause instability with the AUR. You don't have that issue here because literally it's only one additional repo, and the rest is straight from Arch directly. So you shouldn't have that problem. So really, really great distro enabling services. Press enter to finish. No, I don't want to remove the setup assistant. And as you can see, we are back to the Garuda welcome screen. Gamer, which we've looked at, settings manager. Let's look at the network assistant. Okay. That took a few seconds. Okay, so Wi-Fi status, disable MAC addresses, local IP addresses, and all of that type of info here. Linux drivers, if you have a distro that only has hardware that only accepts Windows drivers, you can use NDIS wrapper. I haven't seen that in a very long time. Let's see what else here. Again, talking to the services we called out earlier. So some of their own hosted stuff, like their own GitLab instance, private bin instance, Bitwarden, Xerox, and you can contact the team on Element, IRC, Discord, Telegram, Forum, etc. So let us reboot this quickly and see if it actually comes back up. Personally, I've actually used Garuda in the past, and actually specifically this version gaming, but I stopped using it because one of the updates went haywire, and I just opted to try something else at that point. I've had really no actual complaints about Garuda at all, really. Really great distro, actually. Okay, that was pretty quick, so let's see if it comes back up. It does. We don't need to see this every single time. We can close that. Give that a couple of seconds. So, Garuda's, the team has their vision. Nothing wrong with that. You can see it comes up quite strongly. And if moving on to an Arch-based type distro and you don't want to spend hours reading everything, you can use Garuda. It's pretty much set up out the box. And just bear in mind, there are some decisions the team has made that takes it away from normal Arch. Community is generally quite welcoming, and generally works pretty well. In this case, of course, I see we are having an issue with the desktop loading. That could very well just have been not having applied the update, so I'm just going to log out and log back in again. Should experienced users use this distro? Well, you want to get up and running quickly and you don't want to do, oh, here we go, now it works, the full Arch thing, and you just want to play games or do whatever quite quickly, nothing wrong with selecting this distro. You can, of course, remove all the additional softwares I've already mentioned. What I am going to say, though, is don't try to go and retheme this. You can get some of the weirdest errors. So it's very much assumed that this is how it looks and this is how it's going to stay. So right now, out of the 4 gigs, it's used just over a gig, 1.3 to be precise, while it's just idling. And we have just over 2.5 gigs left here, so that's pretty much it. So let's check this shell. So it is still using bash, which is great. So let's just exit this. So summary, really a great distro. It has a specific vision. If you're happy with the vision, use it. If you don't mind having the chaotic AUR, go ahead. Just bear in mind, if you're not going to use the chaotic AUR, then don't just go with it. For the simple fact that you're not going to be able to update all the tooling. But yeah, I would say definitely try it out yourself. See if you like it. And let me know via feedback what you think. If you've used it. If you've used something else that you think is better, or if you think we've missed something in this video, please let us know. It'll be very